Hello everyone, welcome back to Aradhana Convent School's online study portal. And today we are going to discuss about the poem An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum by Stephen Spender. Now before getting started, let me tell you that we are going to cover meanings of important words, reading of the poem and detailed explanation. Stephen Spender was a poet and English essayist. Spender had keen interest in politics, and so he declared himself as socialist and pacifist. His work concentrated on themes of social injustice and the class struggle. This poem describes the social inequalities which are prevailing in the society. In the poem, he describes the condition of the students of an elementary school, which is situated in a slum area. The poet wants to draw attention of everyone towards these kids so that their life can be improved and they may get trained to become good citizens rather than criminals. Before starting the poem, let me tell you some important words. First is elementary, which means basic. Second is a slum, which means a densely populated urban as well as polluted area where people are socially disorganized and suffer from poverty. The theme of the poem is harsh reality of the slum children. We also get to know the wide gap between rich and poor, where the slum children are deprived of right to education. The message that the poet wants to give us: he is appealing to educated and rich people of the society to improve the classroom condition of the slum children and help them to acquire education and a bright future. Moving on to the meanings of stanza 1. Gusty waves, which means breezy winds. Paler, pale or dull face. Stunted, not fully grown due to malnutrition. Gnarled, knotted or rough. Weeds, which are unwanted plants that grow on their own. Number 6. Paper seeming boy, which means very thin boy, as thin as a sheet of paper. Heir means successor. Let me introduce the main characters of stanza 1 which the poet is talking about. First is the tall girl. Then we have the paper seeming boy. An unlucky heir. And the last one is one unnoted, sweet and young boy. Moving on to poem and explanation. Far, far from gusty waves, these children's faces, like rootless weeds, the hair torn round their paler, the tall girl with her weighed down head, the paper seeming boy with rat's eyes, the stunted, unlucky heir of twisted bones reciting a father's gnarled disease, his lessons from his desk. At the back of the dim class, one unnoted, sweet and young. His eyes live in a dream of squirrel's game. In tree room other than this. The first stanza contains vivid description of the slum children. The first child about whom the poet describes is a tall girl whose head is bent. The tall girl with her weighed down head. Maybe because of tiredness or shame. There is another boy who is so weak and thin that he has been compared to a sheet of paper, the paper seeming boy. And his eyes are compared to that of rats. Then he describes another student who is physically disabled. The stunted, unlucky heir of twisted bones. The poet says that this boy is unlucky because he inherited a disease from his father, due to which he has a deformed body. Instead of getting any facilities from his father, he has received a disease in heritage. reciting a father's gnarled disease. The last stanza ends with a sweet young boy who sits at the back of the class, dreaming, and was not paying attention to the class. The poet could see his eyes, which are bright and full of dream. It seemed as if he was rather interested in playing with the squirrels in the tree house. One unnoted, sweet and young, his eyes live in a dream of squirrels' game in tree room other than this. Besides all these, the poet also tells about other details of the children's life. They are far, far away, metamorphically, from the mainstream of life, freedom, adventure, and a bold future, far, far from gusty waves. These children are compared to unwanted weeds, like rootless weeds. Here the writer wants to say that these children seem to be unwanted, like the unwanted weeds which grow on their own in the fields. Their hair is not neatly done, the hair torn round their paler. It falls on their pale face as if it has been torn apart. The children are untidy, they haven't combed their hair. The faces of the children are dull and without any energy. They are not full of energy like other kids of their age. The tall girl seems to be hopeless, sick, and tired. So this was all about stanza 1, poem and explanation. Moving on to the poetic devices of stanza 1. First is simile, like rootless weeds. Here, the children are compared with rootless weeds, unwanted. Next is metaphor, paper seeming boy. Here the boy is compared with paper as he is very thin. And the last one is repetition, which is the use of forward to stress on the distance of the children from adventure, life, and a bright future. Meanings. First is sour, which means unpleasant. Here it refers to the color of the sour cream, which is off-white or dirty. Donations, here it means a list. Dawn, early morning or sunrise. Civilized dome, here it means rising sun at the horizon, which is in the shape of a dome, which is semicircle. Tyrole's Valley, a beautiful ice valley in Australia. Sealed, shut or locked. Lead, here it means dark future of kids. Capes, a large piece of land that sticks out into the sea from the coast. In stanza 2, the poet is giving classroom description. The sour cream walls, donations or the lists on the walls which are totally unwanted, Shakespeare's picture, beautiful sceneries like that of Tyrole's Valley, and that wall also has a map. Let's see in the poem. Stanza 2, poem and explanation. On sour cream walls, donations, Shakespeare's head, cloudless at dawn, civilized dome riding all cities, belled, flowery Tyrole's Valley, one open-handed map, awarding the world its world. And yet, for these children, these windows, not this map, their world. Here, the poet moves on describing the classroom. The walls are sour in color, which means pale, dull, colorless, or dirty. The next thing that the poet focuses on is wall filled with unwanted donations, or you can say lists, because already the children are suffering from poverty, and this list of donations are mocking the children because they are of no use to them. The next is the picture of Shakespeare, which is totally out of place and ironical. Because if you pay attention, the classroom we are talking about is an elementary school classroom where the children are too small to understand Shakespeare's language. There are also many beautiful scenery like that of famous Tyrole's Valley, which has beautiful flowers. There is an image of map too. But all these things, the map, the beautiful picture, donations, Shakespeare's head, are irrelevant because the slum where they live is different from what is shown in the map and these beautiful sceneries. Their world is only what they see out of the window of the classroom. That is the slum. Where all their futures painted with a fog, a narrow street sealed in with a lead sky. Far, far from rivers, capes, and stars of earth. Their future is full of darkness. Their future painted with fog. Here, fog symbolizes darkness. Their future is also compared to a narrow street, which means that there is no wide scope available for their future growth. These children are far, far away from the radiant light of knowledge and education. Here, star of words means knowledge and education. The repetition of the word far, far seems to highlight the point made by the poet that there is a wide gulf between the slum children and the rosy picture presented by the pictures on the walls. So here ends the poem and explanation of stanza 2. Moving on to the literary device of second stanza, that is a metaphor. First one is sour cream walls, where the walls are described to be dull as the color of sour cream, which is off-white. Next is narrow street sealed with a lead sky. Here the future of the kids is described as limited. Moving on to stanza 3, meanings. The first one is wicked, which means evil. Tempted here means persuaded or persuade. Slyly, trickily. Cramped means confined. Slag, weak. Mended, repaired. Blot, to mark with a spot. Doom, disaster. Moving on to stanza 3, important characters, where Shakespeare is said to be wicked and the map is said to be a bad example, and the slum is compared to cramped holes. Here we go with the poem and explanation of stanza 3. Surely, Shakespeare is wicked, the map a bad example, with ships and sun and love tempting them to steal, for lives that slyly turn in their cramped holes. Here, Shakespeare is shown to be wicked. Why? Because in all the works of Shakespeare, he always glorifies life to such an extent that it becomes totally opposite to the life of these children who are living in the slum, who are facing so many hardships. Next, the poet says that the map is a bad example because it gives a picture of beautiful world, which is sharp contrast to the immediate surroundings of the children who live in a slum with narrow streets and a lead sky. They are never liked or loved by anyone. Therefore, they hate almost everyone. Their desire of being loved by others forces them to steal. Love tempting them to steal. They live in small homes and they have started adjusting to it. The poet compares these children to rodent or rats living in cramped holes, which signifies dirt and slum environment, which is full of trash. For lives that slyly, which means trickily, turn in their cramped holes. From fog to endless night. Their life is going towards an endless night. This means their future is full of darkness. On their slag heap, these children wear skins peeped through by bones and spectacles of steel, with mended glass like bottle bits on stones. All of their time and space are foggy slum. So blot their maps with slum as big as doom. These kids are so thin that one can easily see their bones through the thin layer of the skin. These kids suffer from malnutrition where skins peep through by bones. They wear spectacles which are made up of steel. Spectacles of steel. They are very cheap and very uncomfortable. Even the lenses in the spectacles are repaired with mended glass, like bottle bits on stones. The spectacles look like stones which have been repaired with pieces of glass sticking out of them. Here the poet tries to explain that these kids have to face so many hardships in their lives. As these slums are getting bigger, they will destroy the future of these kids. And it is very difficult for such kids to escape from them. So blot their map with slums as big as doom. Moving on to the poetic devices of stanza 3. First is a metaphor. Cramped holes. Their homes are very small like holes. And next is simile, like bottle bits on stones, which is indicating their repaired spectacles. And here we go with the last stanza. Meanings. Catacombs, which means tomb or a cemetery. Azure, which means deep blue. Stanza 4 begins with the hope of the poet. Let's see. Unless governor, inspector, visitor, this map becomes their window, and these windows that shut upon their lives like catacombs. Break, oh break open till they break the town, and show the children to green fields, and make their world run azure on gold sands, and let their tongues run naked into books, the white and green leaves. Open. History theirs, whose language is the sun. The final stanza begins with a hopeful note. It is an appeal to the concerned authorities like the governor, inspector, visitor, bureaucrat, or whoever visits the slum area. He is appealing them to change the lives of the children by becoming their map or their guide, so that they can introduce the world to them and improve the state of the classroom and make the education meaningful and relevant to the slum children. Then, the windows through which the slum children observe their world, their personal experience in the slum, will break open to reveal the outside world in all its natural beauty. The children will then have no restricted or misguided view of the world. They will understand its true beauty. He wants these people, the governor, inspector, the visitor, or the public, to help these kids in achieving their dreams, as this will take them away from fog to azure sky. The poet wants to say that in this way the kids can be taken away from darkness to their present to a bright future. He wants these kids to experience the sands and the beauty of nature, as this will lead to a desire of gaining knowledge. They will go through the white and green leaves. Here white depicts the books and green leaves depict nature. This will then result in their progress, and they will be able to paint a bright future for themselves. Break, oh break open till they break the town. Here the poet is saying that we have to educate these children so that they become valuable citizens, or else they will break the town, they will become criminals without education. We have to show nature to these children, show the green children, show the children to green fields, and make their world run azure on sands. Through education, we can help them to acquire a bright future. At last, the poet is saying, history theirs whose language is the sun. Here he is giving education the supreme power. He is saying that education is important so that their lives can become relevant and meaningful. Moving on to the poetic device of stanza 4. Metaphor. The white green leaves open. Here, books and nature are expressed in the form of white and green leaves. So that's all for today. Stay tuned until we meet next time. Thank you for watching.